Joining us now is Okpe with stories trending around the world. Hello, G.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. How are you?
I'm good. You are here this morning again to take charge.
As always. Good morning, Adeswa. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine, thank you.
Great.
Please take charge.
I will try. Good morning, Rufai. How are you?
Hi, Audrey. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Well, good morning to you, viewers. We begin what's trending in Nigeria. Users on social media have called on the application of the Sharia law to punish the governor of Kano State, Abdullahi Ganduje, for being caught on camera for allegedly receiving a bribe after a Sharia court in the state on Monday sentenced a musician to death by hanging over a song alleged to be blasphemous against Prophet Muhammad. Twitter users are demanding the same punishment for Ganduje for the act of corruption. Well, let's take some quick reactions. A Twitter user, Maurice Monia, wrote, "If the Sharia court is determined to murder a man because of blasphemy, then Ganduje must, as a matter of principle, have his hand amputated. There is actual video of his transgressions. The law must be fair to the high and low, the mighty and weak." Twitter user Boldilocks wrote, "The laws in Nigeria have always been tailored to benefit the rich and oppress the poor. That's the only reason why Ganduje still has his hands. What's pitiful is that Ganduje, as the state governor, is still the same person who has to sign off on Yahya Sharif's execution. Ironic." Well, you know that Twitter users are still using the hashtag Abolish Sharia Law because of the verdict that occurred on Monday over this musician. And, you know, they're calling on the governor. I think this is a way of calling on the governor of Kano State to really look into the matter by, you know, imposing this action on him. I mean, Ganduje has not, as we all know, has not been convicted of any, you know, bribery allegation at this point. So, you know, I don't see any reason why they should be calling for his amputation. I guess in the Sharia law, you know, bribery is one of the, you know, sins
And
for amputation.
Yes. The punishment for it. Real anger and despair by Nigerians who are calling for this. But as we know, a secular court already handled this case. And I think at that point, we're talking about the EFCC, the anti-graft agency, not having forensic analysis of that video, and there was no lack of evidence to prove the case, and it was thrown out. It was also sent, I think, to the State House of Assembly, which also found the governor, you know, innocent. So I think that matter has long settled. It's long been over. But I do understand their points that, you know, the law should be fair. You should not be seen as tilted for one section of the society because you're rich and powerful, you can get away with things, and then if you're poor, the law only concentrates on you. It's definitely a conversation that will continue. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon.
Well, I mean, the Sharia law is not a criminal orthodoxy. It falls within the province of personal orthodoxy, which is like saying that, look, it applies only to Muslims in only 12 states of the Federation in the north, and the people who subject themselves to it will fall under that jurisdiction, which was the point we made yesterday. But you can also go on appeal. Now, the story, as it were, two issues. Well, the principal point about the law to apply to both the rich and the poor, because all the cases of Sharia law that we have had, you've not had any prominent or privileged person submitting themselves to the jurisdiction of the Sharia court. And yet, these are also persons who are Muslims, who will claim that they are very devout Muslims. So the perception is that it's only for the poor. The second point is that, look, even when a sentence of death by hanging is passed within the Sharia court, nobody can be executed without the consent of the governor.
And so that's why
I think the more important point that we should be making is that even if that sentence is placed before Governor Ganduje, he must not sign it. He must not approve of that death penalty. The third point is that Yahya Aminu, the fellow who is involved in the case, he has the right to go on appeal. And yesterday I mentioned the case of Safiya Tungatudu, who was sentenced to death in the year 2001, October 2001. And what was the offense then? She was accused of adultery. She was accused of having a child for a married man as a divorcee. Now, the Sharia court freed the man. He was found blameless. And that generated a lot of international outrage. But of course, the matter went on appeal. A lawyer stood firm. And in March 2002, she was freed to the delight of everyone. And that was why I was recommending yesterday that civil society and human rights lawyers particularly need to take interest in this particular case that we now have before us to ensure that Aminu does not get hanged for expressing an opinion, for exercising his rights under Section 39 of the Constitution, and that he does not become a victim of sectarian politics.
Yes.
Now, after the program, I discovered that the Committee for Relevant Art, which is a group of artists defending the rights of artists to be heard, and also promoting art and culture, they are already linking up with a group called African Defenders, which is a group that defends artists in Africa. They are also linking up with Artwatch, which is another group. And the plan is to escalate the objection to the ruling of the Sharia court all the way to the African Union and also the United Nations. And I'm sure that by the time they initiate that process, they will get more persons within the civil society, international civil society, joining them. But first, Aminu's lawyers must take up the matter quickly, and human rights lawyers should also provide necessary support.
Yes, I love the point that you made about the governor not signing off on the death penalty. That man cannot be hanged. Another person, but the issue is that the people that really do believe in the Sharia law are pushing for it, and which is the sad situation that we face in Nigeria. Another person that was trending yesterday, before I come to you, Rufai, was the president's media aide, Bashir Ahmed, who also came under fire for a tweet he posted in 2015, where he wrote, if we can pull up that tweet, "I can't pretend or keep silent. I support the death penalty for blasphemy. That's my belief, and I do not and will never support the hashtag #SaveKano9. Rufai, what is your take on that tweet that was trending yesterday?
So, I mean, my take on that tweet is that's not good. That's not good. You can't just say you support blasphemy. That's your belief. You wouldn't. We are in a society where laws rule our dealings and our conversations in a public space. So I don't support that. I'll say that straight up. But I want to talk about the singer. So what I fear for in all of this is his life. So since there's a sectarian connotation to it, I fear that if he's not protected properly in all of this, even if we overturn the decision of the court, we don't sign his death warrant, people that still have very sectarian ideology must still go ahead to kill him, if they can go all the way to burn his family house. So I think most importantly, I don't know where is he now, the singer is now. If we can get some form of protection for him, I think that would be all right. Because in most of these cases, especially when there's a sectarian slant to it, people still go ahead and take laws into their hands. And it will just happen and you just wonder what is the case. I mean, just like I made a case yesterday for Salman Tafi, the governor of Punjab in Pakistan that went against anti-blasphemy laws, he was assassinated because there's a sectarian slant to it. So most importantly, apart from going the legal angle, ensuring that this death warrant is not he's not killed or the governor doesn't sign his death warrant, the protection of his life too is important.
Very well said, Rufai. Shall we take another story? Police authorities in Kebbi State have arrested a man and 3 of his wives for maltreating an 11-year-old boy who was allegedly chained and kept in an animal stall for 2 years. The spokesperson for the police in the state, Nafiu Abubakar, said the suspects were arrested on Sunday in Kebbi State. The police said they received information that the 11-year-old boy named Jibrin Aliyu had been chained at their home for almost 2 years. Investigations are ongoing, and the boy has been taken to a psychiatric hospital for medication. When I saw this video, Adesua, my heart broke into 2. I could not believe that human beings could be this evil. I mean, this is the biggest crime to humanity. Imagine this man, his son.
His
biological son, and he's been kept in the birdcage, allegedly, for 2 years. And he's been maltreated. Apparently, he also has some pre-existing condition. He's probably epileptic. And I don't understand how this could happen and people could get away with something like this. Imagine this.
No one should get away with this. It is inexcusable.
Yes.
It is dehumanizing, and it is barbaric. And all those found culpable should be made to face the law. But most importantly is the point which you're highlighting. The pre-existing condition, some reports say mental ill health.
Yes.
And it points to the fact that, you know, there's still a lot of ignorance, lack of awareness about mental ill health in Nigeria. It's not witchcraft. It is not a death sentence. Mental ill health is just like any other illness and can be treated, you know, can be managed.
Right.
You know, so this is a reference point to that. We thank the Kebbi State government, because we do
must
care
congratulate
they've
them.
intervened,
Yes.
and they are picking up his bills for rehab.
Yes.
You know, anyone who has mental ill health in Nigeria should be able to access affordable health care.
Yes.
And this is a reference point. You know, it is heartbreaking that anybody will go through this, even as a child.
Yes. Dr. Bati, what sort of punishment will these people go through?
Well, the stepmothers and even the father should not be allowed to get away with this. I mean, the fundamental rights of that child have been violated under the Constitution, because every Nigerian, every individual, says the Constitution, is entitled to the dignity of the human person. And treating her in this case, in this manner, is a violation of that child's right to the dignity of the human person. Second, there are also enabling laws, the Young Persons Law, and also the Child Rights Act. I don't know whether Kebbi is one of those 19 states that have domesticated the Child Rights Act, but we have the Young Persons Law, we have the Constitution, you know, about the dignity of the human person. Because, I mean, this is a clear case of cruelty, a clear case of child slavery. And international conventions, even domestic law, you know, do not approve of anybody to be put in a state of slavery. Now, in other jurisdictions, you know, a child like this will be taken away from these cruel stepmothers and, you know, a father that is absent-minded and that has probably been captured by these stepmothers, as they say in Nigerian parlance. So, you know, but you need to, the state government should look into that possibility, you know, to put that child up for adoption. Since he has found himself in a hostile environment between his father and, you know, two stepmothers. And again, this also speaks to the politics of polygamous setups. I mean, his mother died, and then the stepmothers refused to care for him. Instead, they chose to brutalize him and dehumanize him. You know, I don't want to talk more about that, because polygamy is something that some people think that works very well in some other circumstances. But in this particular case, it's not working in that family.
Completely failed. Rufai, what is your take on the story?
Very sad. I mean, chills running down my spine just seeing that. That boy has suffered a lot of muscle wastage and limb loss. You can see he can barely walk. The torture on him is just unthinkable. And I'll go back to, you know, a lot of people talk about ignorance, but I say it's maybe ignorance has precipitated a culture of, you know, pushing people away when they have challenges, maybe psychological challenges, or they've got epilepsy in this case. It's not a death sentence. It can be treated. You can still, you know, integrate people like this in society. But this is just like the case of the young girl that had blue eyes that was sent away from the house. So it is very scary that we're increasingly seeing these trends, and these are things we should work on. The child's rights, you know, should be enforced. The parents, the father and the stepmother, I think they should have their day in court. Most importantly, the psyche of the child is what I'm concerned about. But yeah, I'm concerned about the mental state of the child, but is the Nigerian state concerned about the mental state of Nigerians when we still have laws in place that say if you're found to be mentally unstable, they should sell your property and use to take care of you. We've not reviewed those laws. So we should even look at those laws first. Because it's so easy to say, oh, don't stigmatize someone that's got a mental challenge. But the laws on ground don't support people like that. It's still very difficult to get psychiatrists. For a population of over 200 million, I'm not sure we have 10,000 psychiatrists in this country. So there's a big gap. And these are issues we should look at. Most of our psychiatrists are well on their way to Canada to practice because things are difficult in this terrain. So it's a holistic problem, not just about the child. We should look at this child needs counseling, this child needs love, this child needs care.
Yes.
But if you take this child to a social, sort of like a social worker or juvenile home, are we sure that this child is going to get all the nurturing, that'll lead this child to be somebody great in the future? What are our social services like in a country where we don't have our provisions for old people? I mean, there are many questions we need to ask ourselves in this country. And that's why I keep asking, do we live our lives in this country like we are ready to pass it on to the next generation?
Yes.
Sometimes, to me, it doesn't look like that.
Very good point, Rufai. We shall take another story. Nigeria. The Nigerian government has announced that it will reciprocate travel bans and restrictions on Nigeria by any country. Nigeria was recently included by the U.S. government to its list of countries with visa restrictions. The Controller General of the Nigerian Immigration Service, Mohammed Bandede, said Nigeria's new visa policy is reciprocal in nature. And like the U.S., Nigeria has the right to dictate who is allowed or denied entry. In February, President Muhammadu Buhari unveiled a new visa policy for the country, which provides for 3 categories of visas: short visit, temporary and permanent residence, and 79 other visa types. Finally, we have some conclusion on these visa restrictions. I mean, it's not a visa ban, really. It is a visa restriction. So they're 2 different things. But finally, we now know, remember we took the story, Dr. Abati, where we were like, we need to know the countries that will be restricted or banned from coming in because of the COVID-19 situation. And so the story now, I'm excited that this reciprocity has finally been cleared out of the way.
I would just like to see what countries will make the list of that reciprocity for Nigeria.
Well, they just said it.
Just US.
Not just US, any country that has imposed a restriction on Nigeria, they will reciprocate that.
Oji, it is one thing to say it. It is another thing to carry it through. I am waiting to see it happen.
Well, I mean, reciprocity is a basic principle in international relations. Tit for tat.
Yes.
What Nigerians call you do me, I do you.
Yes.
And
wait, Rufai calls it tospe, isn't it?
Anyway, so there is the principle of reciprocity, and countries usually follow that.
Yes.
And in this regard, Nigeria is saying that, look, if you restrict visas for Nigerians, then of course we would, do likewise. You recall that when the United States Embassy decided to increase visa fees, their point was that, look, they were just reciprocating what was being done to Nigerians in other parts of the world, being done to Americans who applied to come to Nigeria. So, and that's how it works. However, for Nigeria, the 79 visa types that you refer to, part of the idea was also to attract investors, to make it easy for business people to come to Nigeria. So the ease of doing business, all of that within the framework of the ease of doing business. But now we're in a very peculiar situation, COVID-19. Every country is trying to protect itself. So rather than talk about reciprocity, I would have expected that the immigration boss will also go a step further, to talk about countries that are high-risk countries.
Yes.
I think that's very important. If we shut down the airports in March and we're not going to reopen them, Nigeria should also be concerned that persons from high-risk countries are not allowed to come into the country at a particular time when we don't even know the actual figures in terms of the positivity rate. Yes, they quote figures every day, but the concern is that the figures may in fact be higher.
As always. Rufai, this is your story. What is your take on it?
I mean, let me quote another Nigerian parlance before Uncle. Simply, I say that because it's the law, it's the norm, reciprocity, but we need to be very careful in a time like this. I mean, nobody prepared for what COVID-19 has brought to us. Nobody envisaged it. And we need to be very careful at a time like this. And also, let's not forget that our aviation sector is bleeding. I think it was some day ago that Fan was talking about money that's needed, to be able to run the aviation sector, and said the bulk of this money comes from international flights and the like. So let's also make that other consideration. And I think there are better ways to, also talk around these things. I know, reciprocity is germane, but we can both have that conversation, bilateral conversation across borders regards things like this.
Very good. But we'll head over to the U.S. now. United States Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden announced on Tuesday that he has picked Senator Kamala Harris as his running mate in November's general election. The senator makes history as the first black woman to serve as a major political party's vice presidential pick. Harris was a former California attorney general who has been urging for police reform amid anti-racism protests. Well, let's take a tweet from former President Barack Obama. He wrote, "I've known Senator Kamala Harris for a long time. She is more than prepared for the job. She's spent her career defending our Constitution and fighting for folks who need a fair shake. This is a good day for our country. Let's go win this thing." Really, congratulations. I'm completely excited for Ms. Kamala Harris. This just proves that Joe Biden is willing to bridge the gap, the minority gap at this point by selecting her. He's always said that he was going to select a woman as his running mate, and I'm really happy that finally this has happened.
Indeed. Joe Biden was deliberate and cautious, in making history again. I say that because as vice president, he served with the first black American president, Barack Obama. And should he win with Kamala Harris, then he would be the first president to have a woman of color as vice president in America. But she is the unique American story. At a time when, there are calls for racial equity, racial justice, police reforms, and proper leadership. If you look at the coronavirus pandemic in America and how it's been handled, she fits the bill. They both fit that bill of a perfect ticket.
Yes.
She's also a trailblazer when it comes to leadership, women in leadership.
Yes.
And she's done that in the past. She's tough. And of course, she has also now become a source of hope and inspiration to a lot of young women in America, women of color who don't think that they matter at the table. Yes. But the question is, will it be enough for America to vote them in?
I sincerely hope so. I mean, this is a key moment for African-American women right now.
Well, earlier in the year, Vice President Joe Biden had made it very clear that he was going to choose a woman. And now he has decided to choose a black woman, a woman of color, and he has made a very formidable choice. And I think that what he has done is very strategic. Now, let's look at the details. One, the Democratic Party under Obama chose a black man as a candidate. And this time around, Joe Biden, for the 2020, is choosing, a woman of color. The Democrats at one level are giving, sending across a message that they are, progressive, as opposed to the all-male cast that you have on the Republican side, because the Republicans have always, been majorly male. Then secondly, it's strategic because Joe Biden needs certain categories of voters. The non-voters, most of whom are from the ethnic minority groups, and then, of course, the women group, and then particularly the black population. And, the choice of Kamala Harris, because she insists on her name being correctly pronounced. She says it's not Kamala or Amala, it's Kamala. So our choice is also very strategic in that regard. Now, she's the first female, the first woman of color to be chosen on a major party ticket, and the third female in American history to emerge at that level, after Geraldine Ferraro in 1984 and Sarah Palin in 2016. But of all the women that have shown up, she has the most formidable credentials. District Attorney in San Francisco, Attorney General in California, and then in 2016, she went to the Senate. She's also an embodiment of the American dream, the fact that the child of an immigrant can make it to the very top. The mother came from India, an endocrinologist. The father came from Jamaica, retired Stanford professor Donald Harris. And now you find these two, the Asian and the Jamaican, producing a daughter who is now at the very top. Yeah. So she's also a trailblazer for women. Yes. So it's a good development, but Kamala Harris is going to be under a lot of pressure.
Well, I think
I hope that the American media will focus on the issues rather than talking about how she dresses, how she looks, because that's what the media does to her.
No, I think she's very strong. I think she's the only person that can take whatever Donald Trump's campaign is going to dish out. Briefly, Rufai, what's your take on the story?
For the first time, I watched Fox yesterday, and they didn't have anything to say against Kamala. So surprising.
Well, just wait.
So that's to show you the kind of person she is. One thing that stood out for me in the nomination was a message Joe Biden put out that says, Kamala, I know her very well. She worked with my son, Bo, and I thought about Bo when I made that decision. I knew this was going to happen when the paper leaked of Joe Biden's script, and it said, hold no grudge against Kamala. I'm really excited about this. She's going to push definitely across the bounds and across the state. The campaign is going to be hard. She's feisty. She's a stomper. Yes. She knows how to campaign. She knows how to get on the road. And I'm really just excited about what the Democratic Party has put forward. The Trump camp is not happy about this.
Shall we keep our fingers crossed for her?
Thank you very much. We'll see how that works out. And that's all on what's trending.